I do read the comments. So if you have a question or comment, be sure to put it in the chat. And if you're listening or watching the recording, this does go up as a video in many places. It also goes up as the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. I do see the comments and questions there. It just might take me a little bit longer, but please leave them. I love interacting with you. And be sure to like and subscribe wherever you are listening. It helps me to know what content you are enjoying and also to spread the word so that other people can find me. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to automate and habituate movement so that you are getting in the movement that you need to stay limber and active. There's a saying, motion is lotion, as in, if you don't move, you're going to become the Tin Man. And if you do move, then you can keep moving as you age and keep staying active and doing the things that you love to do. And I love to be active. And so as I am aging, I'm 52. Movement is something that I've definitely prioritized, and I will talk about that more. But first, a few things that I like to do before I get started. I want to give a shout out to some of my listeners. It's always interesting to see where my listeners are coming from. And lately, I've been getting a lot of listeners from Vietnam. So I've never been to Vietnam, and I want to share some interesting facts about Vietnam. Vietnam is actually home to the largest cave in the world. There are images of people camping in this cave, and they're like teeny tiny in this jig. It doesn't even look like a cave. It looks like they're just outdoors on the mouth of a river somewhere. It looks fascinating. They have 392 rivers, and the fact that so many Vietnamese live along waterways has really impacted the food and the culture in other ways, which I always think it's fascinating how geography impacts culture as an anthropologist. And they also have an amazing tropical environment, which means that they have a lot of tropical fruit. Love tropical fruit. I cannot get enough lychee or lychee, however you pronounce it, or rambutan, whichever variety it is. I don't know what the difference is between lychee and rambutan. If you do, please let me know, except for the fact that one is kind of fuzzy and one is kind of more pokey. I don't know if there's any other difference. They taste the same to me. And Vietnam is also home to one of my favorite foods, the banh mi. I love a good banh mi. If you haven't had it before, it's a sandwich and it's served on French bread, which is influenced from Vietnam's colonial past. But the inside is much more Asian inspired. I like mine with chicken with lemongrass seasoning on it or marinade, and lots and lots and lots of pickled vegetables, the daikon, the carrots, some celery, cilantro. I know some of you have that thing where it tastes like soap to you. I feel so bad for you because I love cilantro. And then a little bit of jalapeno. Banh mi, so good. If you haven't tried it before, definitely try it. It's spelled BANH, second word, MI. And there's actually a sandwich shop here in the Los Angeles area called Lee's Sandwiches. And apparently it's a Vietnamese chain that exists here in the US. They have wonderful banh mi. Highly recommend it. Thank you for joining me from Vietnam. I love finding out about other places, and I'm fascinated by the fact that you have so many rivers crisscrossing your beautiful country. So hopefully someday I'll get to see them for myself. So welcome. I am a brain science-based productivity and time management expert. I've written these 4 short read books. They're defined as short reads because they take less than an hour to read, and they're really more workbooks than books because there are activities to do in them, because I know that when you use the knowledge that you are taking in, you're much more likely to remember it. That's what the brain science show. Passively consuming information doesn't lead to change. If you want to lead to change, you have to actually implement the information. And you can find my books at bywdreams.com. Just type in bywdreams.com and it'll, resolve itself. And then click on one of the top right links, has like our favorite books and supplies or something like that. And you can find out more there. And if you've been following me for a few months, then you know the QR codes move now that I'm in this landscape mode. It used to be right here, but now it's over here. Season of self-care. You know, life is a little nutty right now, and I have found that when the external circumstances are challenging, I need to remind myself to take care so that I have the energy and the mental bandwidth to do the things that I need to do. And right now, I have had to give a lot more time to ensuring that our world is the world that I want to leave behind for my kiddos' generation. And that means a lot more calling of the representatives. If you haven't called your representatives, I'm a big fan of fivecalls.org. That's the number five, CALLS.org. If you've never called your representative before, this is the easiest way because not only do they give you the phone numbers, all you have to do is enter your zip code and they give you the phone numbers, but they also will give you scripts. So you can just pick, oh, I want to talk to them about this topic. And it'll give you a script that you can use, or at least it'll inform you in terms of what you want to say when you get on the phone. By the way, a lot of the times you're just getting voicemail. So if talking to people is something you're not comfortable with, then you can often, I would say at least 50%, if not slightly more, maybe 70% of the time, I have to leave a voicemail. But you can also write, but apparently calls make a big difference. So if there's something that is troubling you nowadays, then please speak up. I'm personally concerned about the recent Supreme Court decision that really is undoing the work of the Voter Right Act from the 60s. I'm not sure what our reps can do about that, but you have to let them know how you feel about these things. Otherwise, they're just going to assume that only the things that they think about matter. So share your opinion. They are our representatives. Make it known how you feel. So I actually had a little issue with my microphone. So I already pulled my little card of positive chaos. So I'm just going to share it here. The world is before you, and you need not take it or leave it as it was when you came in. James Baldwin. I love James Baldwin. He has the most amazing voice. He is a writer. He's no longer with us. He was really active kind of during the civil rights movement time. And this, I feel like, is exactly the card I needed to hear today because let me just say it again. I also just love the rhythm, the poetry of his words. The world is before you, and you need not take it or leave it as it was when you came in. What a beautifully constructed sentence. Words are my love language, and so I am always enamored by people who can wield words with such amazing force. The world is before you, and you need not take it or leave it as it was when you came in. You know, my generation, Gen X, has been, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but we were just randomly blessed with a fair amount of peace and progress for most of our life. And now it's time for us to do the work. I know that I've always been grateful for the fact that as a woman, I had the right to vote, enshrined in the Bill of Rights, or well, not the Bill of Rights, or one of the later amendments. But as we can see, rights are not guaranteed. And so I feel like it is my duty to ensure that I'm helping to leave the world that I want it to be for the next generation, because that's what the people before us did. So it's our time. So fivecalls.org is a great place to start if you can be actively engaged in your community, either on a one-on-one sort of situation or on a large scale. Like yesterday, there was a gentleman in my neighborhood who was having trouble. He was going through the recyclables to make some money, and he was sitting on the curb and he was having difficulty standing up. One-on-one, help the man stand up. So if you can help someone one-on-one, great. If you want to be a part of a larger organization, great. Whatever you do is helpful. Okay. We need all kinds of help in all levels. So, thank you for joining me. Today's topic is how to automate and habituate movement. And why do you want to automate and habituate movement? Because when something is good for you, and by the way, the word good, only you can define what's good for you. What you need is different from what I need. But that being said, we are all humans, and humans, our bodies need to move in order to keep moving. It's kind of like a rubber band that you leave in the drawer and it gets all brittle and won't stretch anymore. That's kind of how our body is. If you don't take it out for a spin, I'm moving my arms around. If you're listening to the podcast and you don't know why I sound the way I do, it's because I'm moving around. If you don't use your movement, you lose it, right? Use it or lose it. And the thing is the challenging thing about being human is that we are feast and famine animals. And this is something I studied as an anthropologist and something I think about a lot. Because we are feast and famine animals, which means that we evolved in a landscape that sometimes had a lot of food and sometimes didn't have a lot of food. And so we eat a lot when there's feast time, and then we store all those extra calories for when it's famine time, so that we have those calories to burn later on. Now, couple that with the fact that our brains take up only 2% or make up only 2% of our body weight, but they take up 20% of our calories. Yes, your brain is an energy hog. And because it's an energy hog and because we're feast and famine animals, your brain is always trying to figure out how to get you to hold on to those calories in case there's a famine around the corner. So maybe when you are feeling, oh, I'm not motivated to do any sort of movement, maybe it's not really about motivation. Maybe it's just your brain saying, like, let's just hold on to those calories because that's what your brain is programmed to do. Now, I talk a lot about the power of habit in my book, Rock Your Morning. Habits are one of your brain's ways of saving energy. Have you ever driven to the office or to a friend's house that you go to all the time and you zone out as you're driving and all of a sudden you arrive and you think to yourself, I have no idea how I got here? That is your brain running a habit program where it takes less energy. And actually, studies have actually shown that when we do things by habit, we actually do them better than when we're consciously trying to do things. It's kind of like that whole thing, like, you know, I need to have you ever played that game? I don't know if it's around anymore. It's an old game. There was a game called Operation where you had to take these little plastic body parts and put them into place on this man's body. And if you touch the sides with these little electric tweezers, it would buzz. And your hand is like shaking because you have to get it right in. If it was something you did habitually, you could just put it in because you're relaxed. You're not consciously thinking about the thing. So sometimes when we're consciously thinking about the thing, it actually makes the thing harder. So habits are amazing because if you're doing something the right way regularly, then you keep doing it the right way, even when you're not thinking about that. There's a saying that I grew up with that has now been amended. The saying used to be, practice makes perfect. Now the saying is, perfect practice makes perfect. Because if you're just practicing and you're being sloppy, you're not going to do it correctly when you actually have to do the thing. In fact, I heard a thing about how batting practice, where a ball is just getting shot at you at a regular speed, is actually not helpful to your batting because pitches don't come at you in this regular way. They come at you, all these different directions because a human's trying to strike you out. So the article I read was saying how that old type of batting practice doesn't help because that's not realistic in terms of what you need to recreate. So batting practice that actually creates the randomness of a human pitcher is what you need. So when you habituate something, you are much more likely to do it because you are just on autopilot. For instance, uh, I do I have a pretty elaborate nighttime skincare routine. It takes me about 10 to 15 minutes. And usually I go to bed around 10, so early, not a big deal. But occasionally I'll get home late and I will kind of like driving in a car someplace you go all the time. I will find myself standing in front of my sink thinking, I'm so tired. I would much rather be sleeping right now than washing my face. And yet I can't seem to stop washing my face. That's because washing my face has become a habit for me. So, going back to movement, when you're feeling not motivated, it's because your brain is trying to keep you from doing something. And one of the best ways that you can get yourself moving is to break it down into the tiniest component possible. So that's tip number one. Break it down to the tiniest component possible. So for instance, let's say you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I want to work exercise 20 minutes 4 times a week." And a couple weeks go by and you haven't done it. That's just too big a chunk. So cut it in half. How about 10 minutes 4 times a week? And if you start doing 10 minutes 4 times a week, great. But if you're not doing it, chunk it down even further. 5 minutes 4 times a week. Now, I know 5 minutes might sound like a ridiculously small amount of movement, but it's a lot more than doing none. And sometimes you just got to put this little wedge in to your life so that your brain can say, "Oh, okay, I did this 5 minutes of exercise. I didn't die. So I'm not going to try and hold you back from doing it. I'm not going to, demotivate you from doing movement." And then you'll find that you can do more and more and more movement. I had a friend who wanted to become more limber, and she literally would stretch for 30 seconds. She would do it while her smoothie was blending. So she would just stretch for 30 seconds. And eventually, she just started stretching on her own more than 30 seconds because her smoothie was getting overly blended. So you just have to create that little wedge. So start small, first of all. Secondly, find a way to automate it. So fit it into your schedule. Like my friend did with the stretching. She would do it when she hit the smoothie button on her blender. Uh, I have 2 things that I do regularly, which is that I play tennis with a friend and I hike with other friends. And those appointments are in my schedule to help to automate them because then I'm not trying to fit movement into my day. I am putting it in and then my day is filling out around it, right? You have to prioritize the things that are important to you. And if maintaining your movement is important to you, then you need to plan for it. I always say planning makes everything easier, even self-care. So, my tip number 3 is find a friend to do it with. When you make an activity fun, your brain makes it a habit faster. That's what the studies have shown because fun is kind of your brain's save button. Like, oh, I like this thing. I want to do this again. I guess somehow fun overrides the need to hold on to calories. So use that hack and make it fun. Whatever the movement is that you like to do. Like my husband and I, we like to play handball with like one of the big jelly balls. It just makes me feel like a kid again. You get in some running and you don't even notice. And it's not like a hard sport to do. Get it in however you want to get it in. Um, if you're curious about something like Pilates or pickleball or whatever, sometimes it can feel intimidating to try something new. But with a friend, it's like, hey, you don't know it, I don't know it, or maybe they do know it and they lead you along. Either way, do it with a friend to make it more fun. So, those are my 3 tips for how to automate and habituate movement into your life. 1, start really small. 2, get a friend involved. 3, pick a date and put it in your planner. And don't feel like you have to do something that you hear is popular. Like, don't shit on yourself. Stick to things that you know you like and things that you know you like now. Like, there are things that I used to do for movement 5 years ago, 10 years ago that I just don't do anymore. I just don't enjoy them anymore. And you know what? I give myself permission to let go of them. So find something you want to do now, Make it a habit. Grab a friend if you can. And if you're having trouble getting started, then size it down to the smallest amount that you can possibly do just to get started and get over your brain's desire to hold you back. Movement is so important, especially as we age. If you've been watching my season of self care, you can see this QR code over here. If you've been watching my season of self care podcast, then you know that the last few weeks I've been talking a lot about movement, specifically fascia. I find it's just so important to helping me feel healthy and capable of going about my daily life where I just don't even have to think about my body because it's like I've taken care of my body by doing my movement. And now my body takes care of me and moving me throughout the day in a way that is fun and pain free. So automate, habituate your movement for better mental and physical health. Thank you so much for joining me. Next week, I'm going to be talking about creativity as self care. So many of us consume rather than create. And I do think that humans are designed to create. If you think just 100 years ago, people would act in community theaters, or they would tell each other stories, or they would at least read aloud and have the fun of acting out the voices and stuff. People cooked a lot more. Humans are designed to be creative, and I believe that creativity is an important part of whole mental health as a human. And so that's what I will be talking about next week. Join me then. Thank you for subscribing. Be sure to like and comment wherever you are. And remember, planning makes